walking down every road, trying to find a trail to sniff my way back home.
Hello again, gamers. Welcome back for another episode of Grokking Twilight Imperium. I'm the board game captain, and today I'm going to be running you through how to play the Mahact gene-sorcerers, which is one of the new factions that came out in the Prophecy of Kings expansion. So I want to give a big thank you and a shout out to one of my viewers, Shugenja. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, who requested that I cover the Mahact gene-sorcerers in this series. So before we get started, I want to say that if you're in a position to and would like to help out the channel, there's a link to my Patreon in the description down below where you can get access to early release videos as well as behind the scenes videos and the ability to request review and tutorials to your favorite classic games. And if you want to get your hands on some cool gamer gear, t-shirts, mugs, etc., there's a link to my Teespring store also in the description down below. Alright, so the Mahact gene-sorcerers. These guys have been mentioned in the storyline for ages, but never had a playable faction. They were the previous rulers of the galaxy before the Lazax came around. They were talked about in hushed whispers about their gene sorcery, their genetic manipulation, but they were fractured and divided due to their hubris. And then when the Lazax came along, who were united in their war effort against them, they were able to defeat them, though not completely destroy them. So what happened to them? So the last of the Mahact had retreated to their homeworld, which was actually outside of the galaxy, and had been lying in wait in hibernation ever since. Now, in the storyline for the Prophecy of Kings expansion, some of the younger races accidentally discover their world and wake them up, not knowing what they had stumbled upon. And now the Mahact gene-sorcerers are back in it and are here to conquer the galaxy once again. So let's go through it. Let's see, what do they play like? What is their play style? What kind of technologies do they get? What kind of unique abilities do they get? How are you going to play the Mahact gene-sorcerers? So first thing I want to talk about with the Mahact gene-sorcerers is their abilities. So they have two abilities and a disability. Their first ability is Edict. Now, Edict says when you win a combat, place one command token from your opponent's reinforcements in your fleet pool, if it does not already contain one of that player's tokens. Other players' tokens in your fleet pool increase your fleet limit, but cannot be redistributed. So this is a very important ability. This is probably their most important ability. What this means is you're going to want to attack people fairly early to get those tokens there. You're going to wind up with free added tokens to increase your fleet size. This also keys into some other things that you can do, which I'm going to come to in a little bit. But right off the bat, this is a crazy good ability. The next ability is Imperia. While another player's command token is in your fleet pool, you can use the ability of that player's commander if it is unlocked. So here's one of the other abilities that immediately keys off of Edict. Like I said, there are other abilities they have that key off of that. There's still more. This one is insane. And this is a big part of why it's difficult to give you a specific strategy to play with, because the Mahact have a lot of variety to the strategies they can use. They're very versatile, and one of the things that keeps your enemies on their toes is whatever faction they choose, their second best ability of their heroes, their commander ability, is going to be one you're going to be able to use as well, and then use it against them. So you're going to want to go in and attack them at least once to get one of their tokens, and then once they release their commander ability, you're going to get their commander ability as well, which means, like, if you're playing a small game of Twilight Imperium with 3 players, at some point you're going to have access to 3 commander abilities, your own and your opponent's, which is nuts. So yeah, this pair of abilities makes them really crazy, because if you're choosing to play them and other players are then picking factions, they're going to have to keep in mind that every commander ability, whatever it is, if it's an amazing commander ability, they're also going to possibly be giving it to you as well, which is very interesting. Now, their third ability is actually a disability. It is hubris. During setup, purge your alliance promissory note. Other players cannot give you their alliance promissory note. So you're not allowed to have alliances with other factions. So you know what? It's a disability, but it's not a very big one. When compared to the two abilities they get, it's fine. I don't mind losing the promissory note at all. Edict and Imperia are fantastic and work synergistically really well with each other. Okay, so what starting units do you get on your home system? So your home system is Ixth, and Ixth has a resource of 3, which isn't bad, but very interestingly, it has an influence of 5, which is huge. They start with a lot of influence, and that will play into some of their focus on politics, which they do have, which is going to be rather interesting. Now, starting on that system, in the Ixth system, you have a space dock, of course, because everyone always gets one. You get a dreadnought, you get a cruiser, you get a carrier, you get 3 ground troops, and you get 2 fighters. Now, this is a great starting fleet. This is one of the better starting fleets of any of the factions. So with the Dreadnought and its carrying capacity of 1, being able to carry the ground force, and the carrier with its carrying capacity of 4, being able to carry the other 2 ground troops as well as the 2 fighters, along with the cruiser, which can go along with one of them to help defend it. You can go out and be colonizing 2 separate systems, one with 1 planet and one with 2 planets, each round, which is really great. It's not up there as the very fast, but fastest of the colonizers in the game, but it's pretty close. It's close to top tier. Anything that allows you to colonize, any faction that allows you to colonize 2 systems in one full round from your starting units is really nice. It gives you a good jump on colonizing, getting out there and spreading throughout the galaxy. So this is a really good starting fleet. Plus, starting with both a Dreadnought and a cruiser militarily is fairly powerful. That's really good. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is their flagship. And the reason I want to talk about the flagship for the Mahact gene-sorcerers is this is something I think you should get out as quickly as possible, possibly in the second round, once you have enough resources from the planets you colonize in the first round, because of course they come into play exhausted. You gotta wait for the second round for them to be unexhausted, but once you do, I think you should try to get one of these, load it up with some ground troops, and maybe some escort vessels to keep it alive, and maybe also a fighter, because it has a capacity of 3, so you can put 2 ground troops and a fighter on it to help protect it. But this is going to be really key to winning some of your early battles with the other factions, because here's the thing. So it costs 8. It has a combat of 5 with 2 attacks, which is pretty on par with most of the flagships. It's got a move of 1, so it's fairly slow. It has a capacity of 3, which is decent. But here's where it excels. During combat against an opponent whose command token is not in your fleet pool, apply a +2 to the result of this unit's combat rolls. Which means before you've had your first combat with an enemy, and before you've taken one of their tokens to put in your fleet supply, the attacks are no longer a 5 or better, they're a 3 or better. That is crazy. 2 attacks at a 3 or better from a flagship with, of course, sustained damage and all. This becomes like incredibly powerful. I mean, it's almost as powerful as a Warsun, which you can get early game before, Warsuns, you got to wait to get the tech. Now, granted, once you win a first combat with that opponent, you will lose that extra power, but there is a way to quickly get it back, and I'm going to talk about that momentarily. So I do think you should get one of these as one of your probably first big purchases after moving your starting couple of fleets out. This should be probably like your next fleet you build should be based around getting your flagship out, because this is going to help you win some battles and get those tokens in your fleet supply. And this is going to be a very aggressive faction. One of the things, now, while their general strategy is very versatile, one of the things I do recommend is attacking, because you need to attack to get the most out of Edict and Imperius. You're going to want to go in and take over some opponents' systems and then hold them. So this ship is going to be very key for that. Now, the next thing I want to talk about are the three different leaders: the agent, commander, and hero, as well as the mech. So they have some very interesting abilities over here. We're going to start with the agent, which, of course, at the start of the game, all factions get to use their agent right out of the gate. So the agent ability is when you would spend a command token during the secondary ability of a strategic action. Now remember, this is talking about the strategy cards, the secondary abilities, so when someone else plays them. You may exhaust this card to remove one of the active player's command tokens from the board and use it instead. This means that once per round, you may get a secondary ability from any opponent's strategy card for free. This is awesome. Now, the only thing that you have to do for it is you have to free up one of their systems that they can activate again. But you don't give them the token back. You just remove it from the board. It goes back to their reserves. So they're not going to get to immediately use that token again. But yeah, they could activate that system again. If they already built in that system, they could build again. It's a minor bonus to them, but it's a huge bonus to you. Getting one free strategy token, essentially, every full round, essentially means that you start with 9 of these command tokens versus everyone else, which only usually starts with 8. And no matter how many you have, you're always going to have more than everybody else, because between this and stealing the fleet supply from other people, you're going to have lots of command tokens. This gives you bonuses, which is really, really cool. Now, the commander gets unlocked when you have 2 other factions' command tokens in your fleet pool. So even in the smallest size game capable for Twilight Imperium 4th edition, you're going to be playing with 3 players. There will be 2 other players out there. So this is not going to be too hard to do. This is going to be fairly easy, in fact. You're going to go out, you're going to have a couple battles, you're going to get their tokens. You're going to have this probably by mid-game, and you're going to get to unlock your commander's ability. Now, your commander's ability is during your tactical actions, you can activate systems that contain your command tokens. If you do, return both command tokens to your reinforcements and end your turn. So now this doesn't give you a free command token like how the agent did, but what it does do is it means that any system you've already activated could still be activated again, and doing so removes the command token from it, which means it can even be activated a 3rd time. So late game, when you really need to be able to retake systems that your opponents take from you, especially like if they manage to steal Mech Rex for you, you have a 2nd fleet waiting in the wings, this can be incredibly valuable at coming back in and taking those key systems like Mech Rex, so you can then get the points for it. Very cool ability, very interesting, going to be really good in the second half of the game. The final ability, the hero ability, which of course is always done by scoring 3 objectives, and then is a ability that can only be done once and then is purged from the game, is a very interesting one. Because it's a little bit finessey. So it says, action. Move all units in a space area of any system to an adjacent system that contains a different player's ships. Space combat is resolved in that system. Neither player can retreat nor resolve abilities that would move their ships. Then purge this card. Now, what you're going to do with this, it's pretty clear to me, is you're going to cause your opponents to fight each other. So, for instance, you take Mech Rex. Your opponents are building up fleets waiting to try to take it from you. They've got 2 big fleets right next to each other because, Mech Rex is at a choke point at the middle of the galaxy. Everybody has their pie wedge of the galaxy. They're coming in. Their fleets are right next to each other. You've got this ability released. You're going to be like, boom, those 2 giant fleets, they got to fight each other now. And guess what? They can't retreat or play any cards that would cause them to move out of the system. This is crazy good. You're going to wipe, after taking Mech Rex, if your opponents have 2 big fleets next to each other, you're going to wipe out one of them and the other's going to be severely diminished, meaning that you're going to hopefully be able to hold on to Mech Rex even longer. This could be, if done at the right time, this could be a game-winning ability. Very, very powerful. The final thing over here is the mech. Now, the mech for the Mahact is the Star Lancer. Now, the Star Lancer is a normal mech, 2 cost, 6 combat, but it has a really cool ability that says after a player whose command token is in your fleet pool, and this is what I was saying before about how those having those command tokens in your fleet pool have other abilities. If they have their command token in your fleet pool and they activate this system, the system with the mech, you may spend their token from your fleet pool to end their turn. They gain that token. So, They activate your system. Let's run this down. They activate your system. You get to spend their token from your fleet pool as long as you have one of your mechs on that planet. You spend their token from the fleet pool to end the turn, and then you give them that token. So they're going to get the benefit of getting one extra token, so that token they used on your system is kind of wasted. However, activating that system means they can't activate it again unless they use something like Warfare to remove that token from the board. It means that you are going to buy yourself the rest of the round to help prepare for when they're going to attack you again, and maybe even get some more mechs in that system and do it to them again next round. Now, you're not going to be able to hold off every player this way, because maybe, you do it to one player, but then the other player has the Warfare ability. You're probably not going to have enough mechs on the planet to do it to them twice. And even if you do, you are using up multiple mechs to do it. But this is actually really amazing, and it's going to be a really great ability for holding on to Mechatol Rex once you get it, because you're going to go in there, you're going to win a battle, you're going to take Mechatol Rex, you have a diminished fleet, your opponent goes, I'm going to come in and attack you. And you're like, no, I'm going to use my Star Lancer ability. I'm going to take your token from my fleet pool. I'm going to give it back to you, and your turn is just over after you've put your token on my system, on Mechatol Rex. This can be incredibly powerful. This can possibly be game-winning. This is a possible game-winning ability on a faction's mech, which is crazy, because once you've taken Mechatol Rex, holding it is the name of the game, and this is really good, really powerful at holding it. Plus, giving them their token back while you do lose the ability of Imperia, which is to copy their commander's ability. If you've got your flagship up there defending Mechatol Rex, your flagship just got more powerful again in fighting them. Sometimes that'll be a decent trade, turning your flagship into like 2/3 of a War Sun, versus losing their commander's ability, especially if their commander's ability wasn't something you needed right now. Plus, if they try to attack you again when you win a battle with them, you're going to get that token back anyway, and that flagship will help you win that battle. This becomes very interesting in that cycle of get a token from someone, spend it to stop them from invading you, make your flagship more powerful again, fight them and get the token back, rinse and repeat. Is going to be an interesting cycle of abilities that you're going to be able to do. Next, I want to talk about the one unique unit that they have on their player board, because the unique unit they have is the Crimson Legionnaire 1. It is a different infantry, and it's statted like a normal infantry, but it has the ability that after this unit is destroyed, gain one commodity or convert one of your commodities to a trade good. This is great because that means you're literally getting, if you convert a commodity to a trade good, you're literally getting enough money back to buy 2 ground troops from the death of a single ground troop. On the other hand, if you have not gotten commodities, this is a way to first get commodities, and then the second one dies and is able to convert that one commodity to a trade good, meaning 2 dying gets you enough to buy 2 more. Either way, their ground troops are a significant upgrade from standard normal infantry, which is really cool. And then, of course, one of their 2 faction-specific techs is the upgraded version of the Crimson Legionnaire. So now we're going to talk about technologies a little bit. So they start with a pair of very nice techs to start with. Both of them are ones that would normally have a prerequisite of 1. They start with biostims and predictive intelligence. So biostims is a green tech that says you may exhaust this card at the end of your turn to ready one of your planets that has a technology specialty or one of your other technologies. This is just a generally very useful tech, especially when paired with other powerful techs, or just being able to ready planets again so you can spend them a second time. Really useful. They also start with the yellow tech, predictive intelligence. At the end of your turn, you may exhaust this card to redistribute your command tokens. When you cast votes during the agenda phase, you may cast 3 additional votes. If you do, and the outcome you voted for is not resolved, exhaust this card. So here's the thing. Predictive intelligence is really nice for 2 reasons when combined with the Mahact. First, exhausting this card to redistribute your command tokens is going to be really good once you start stealing command tokens for your fleet, because you can take some of your own fleet tokens and move them into the tactic area or maybe the strategic area if you need them there. Now, granted, your opponent's fleet tokens can never be redistributed, but your own can be redistributed around. So getting to do that is really good. Plus, the extra 3 votes towards political agendas is really powerful to help you get agendas that you want into play. Plus, their main planet starts with 5 influence, so this is going to lend them some ability towards leaning towards politics as a strategy. Now, there are not a lot of techs that specifically help the Mahact more than they help other factions. Anything that's good for other factions are going to be good for the Mahact as well in general. There's nothing that's specifically awesome with their particular abilities. There is one I want to draw attention to in general, just because it helps with the Crimson Legionnaire 2. I'm going to talk about it in a minute, but for their starting state, you're going to want to go for the techs that are going to let you get the upgrades to the units. You're going to want to get the Warson out. You're going to want to upgrade your dreadnoughts, upgrade your cruisers, because you're going to want them to be more powerful, because you're going to want to win combats. So any techs that are going to get you towards that are going to be good. So, like, go for whatever techs you like that are going to lead you towards them. Like Sarween Tools is always a great one to get another yellow one. You're going to want a lot of reds, so you can reds upgrade your combat power generally, the red techs, and then also will help you get a Warson, which needs 3 red techs. So you're going to want to go for a lot of that, and then go for the upgrades. But specifically, the 2 faction-specific techs are very cool. So both of them, they both are green techs. One is a unit upgrade green, which requires you to have already 2 greens out. It is the upgrade to the Crimson Legionnaire. And you start with 1 green out, the Biostims. The other one requires you to have that green to play it, so you can play it right away as soon as you do a technology. And this is Genetic Recombination. You may exhaust this card before a player casts votes. That player must cast at least 1 vote for an outcome of your choice, or remove 1 token from their fleet pool and return it to the reinforcements. This is really awesome because this allows you to force someone to vote at least a little bit towards your side of things to, again, further help you win the agendas and the voting, which is already something that you're going to be leaning on a little bit. It's going to be combat and exploration and politics for the Mahact, really. Now, the other one is an upgrade to the Crimson Legionnaire. You have the Crimson Legionnaire 2, which, like most upgraded ground troops, gets them down to a combat of 7 versus the 8 of a starting Crimson Legionnaire. And now, in addition to the ability of every time they're destroyed, you get to either, every time a Crimson Legionnaire 2 is destroyed, like a Crimson Legionnaire 1, it gets to give you either a commodity or convert a commodity into a trade good. In addition, you then place the unit that was destroyed on this card, and at the start of your next turn, place each unit that is on this card on a planet you control in your home system. This is really awesome. Getting them back is really awesome. Now, I did say that none of the techs work really well with the starting abilities of the Mahact, but this one really does lend itself really well to the transit diodes. The transit diodes is a yellow tech that requires you to have 2 out. Now, you start with the 1 with predictive intelligence, but, you put out Sarween Tools and you're ready to get this one out next. It says you may exhaust this card at the start of your turn during the action phase, remove up to 4 of your ground forces from the game board, and place them on 1 or more planets you control. So you don't need to have carriers back in your home system to redistribute the rebirthed, if you will, ground troops, the Crimson Legionnaire 2s that are coming back into your home system. Just 4 at a time, you can use this to take 4 of them and put them right into the front line, right back on Mech Rex if you've already taken control of it, or right back on another important planet that you have taken control of and need to hold on to. So this is a tech I do highly recommend getting. Transit Diodes is going to be really good because you're going to want to get the Crimson Legionnaire 2 out, along with lots of other upgraded troops and such, lots of upgraded ships, I should say, and being able to redistribute those Crimson Legionnaire 2s after they for free repopulate your home system is going to be awesome. And then for those Crimson Legionnaire 2s, by the way, they're going to be giving you free money back and free troops back at this point, which makes them incredibly useful. You're going to want to have a good number of them out, but then once you have a good number of them out, your numbers aren't going to go down at all, which is what is so awesome about the Crimson Legionnaire 2s. Okay, so now I want to talk about the strategy cards. What should you go for? Early on, I think it's a really good idea to go for warfare. And the reason I say that is you want to expand quickly. You want to get up adjacent to your opponents and then conquer a couple of their systems, at least one each, so you can start to steal those command tokens for your fleet supply, which is really, really useful. So warfare is going to help you spread out in the galaxy and make colonies quicker. Also, it's going to help you get towards Mechatol Rex much more quickly. Now, if you can't get Warfare, or if you're playing a small game and you have the ability to get a second strategy card, what are some others you should go for? Well, there's a lot of tech that can help them, and you do want to get the prerequisites to get the upgrades to your unit techs. Technology is going to be good, especially since the secondary ability of technology forces you to also spend 4 resources, and to start with, early game, you're not going to have a lot of resources. So that might be a good one. In addition, also politics, especially starting around mid-game, is going to be really good for them because they have extra power when it comes to voting for things. And you're going to want to take the politics. Is going to get you 2 action cards. It's going to choose another player to be the speaker. And then also, it's going to allow you to look at the top 2 cards of the agenda deck and then place each card on top or on the bottom of the deck in any order of your choice. So basically, you're going to get to choose what is the next thing that's going to be voted on. You're going to find one that you like, and you've got all these other abilities which help you with making sure that, that passes or fails, or whatever it is that you need to happen, or you elect a planet or a player or whatever it is. Hopefully you've got your genetic recombination out. You can force one player to vote towards you. Maybe you've saved Ixth, which gives you 5 influence for voting. All this can really help you to get those agendas to go your way. So I would say warfare early on to help you expand quickly, and maybe even later if you're trying to do a lot of attacks. But other than that, I also think that politics is going to be really good. Imperial is going to be good once you need to get points. And of course, technology, because while they don't have a specific group of technologies, you want to get the prerequisites to get the upgraded ships and also the War Sun out, which that will require you to have a lot of techs out. And depending on what extra commander abilities you're picking up by taking the tokens and putting them in the fleet command area from your opponents, those may combine better with certain techs, and if they do, then go for those techs. Because if your opponent's commander abilities combine really well with certain techs, go right for those particular technologies. The thing is, you have to stay on your toes with the Mahact because they're going to play a bit differently from game to game, because it's going to very much depend on what your opponent's abilities are because of how they get to steal the use of your opponent's commanders. So definitely pay attention. Double check with your opponents what their commander's abilities are, and take a quick look through your technologies and see which techs are going to really combine well and synergize well with my opponent's abilities. And that's pretty freaking awesome. Okay, so now I want to talk about what secret objectives to look for when you go digging for them with the Imperial secondary ability, where you can spend a token from your strategy pool to draw one secret objective. And of course, with your agent ability, you can do that without even spending a strategy token, because it doesn't actually cost anything else. So which one should you go for to try to get your 3 objectives scored to unlock your hero? So these are ones that are either going to be in line with your strategy or gimmies, in my opinion. So here we go. The first one I've got here is have 9 or more ground forces on a planet that does not control one of your space docks. Now, this isn't an instant gimme, but once you get your Crimson Legionnaire 2 out, and you also have the transit diodes out, you could just throw some ground troops on a frontline planet that doesn't have a space dock a few turns in a row, and you can wind up with 9 pretty easily. If you have a fleet there, you drop a couple off, and then maybe do the transit diodes twice, and you will have those there. So it's not an instant gimme, but it is one that you can easily work towards. The next one we have here, establish hegemony. By the way, that one was called Occupy the Fringe. Establish hegemony. Control planets that have a combined influence value of at least 12. Now, you start out with a planet with 5 influence. That's huge. You're almost halfway there. One more influence and you're halfway there. So not a gimme, but pretty quickly you should be able to get this. A handful of other planets, and you're probably going to have 12 influence. Next, we have drive the debate. You or a planet you control are elected by an agenda. With all your extra voting power that you're going to be working towards, this should happen at some point. In addition, there is dictate policy. There are 3 or more laws in play. So you're going to be trying to get laws that you want in play. And you're going to, once you're able to do get some voting going on and get those laws passed, you should hopefully get multiple laws in play, because you're going to be playing towards that, getting the laws you want voted on. So it's not going to be an instant one. It's not going to be a gimme, but it is going to be one you're going to be working towards. Next, we have occupy the seat of the Empire, control Mechatol Rex, and have 3 or more ships in its system. So when you control Mechatol Rex, you're going to want 3 or more ships to control it. You're going to have a large fleet supply because of the edict ability. You're going to easily be able to have 3 or more ships, and then because of your ability with the Star Lancer being able to stop people from attacking you for a limited amount of time, you should hopefully be able to control Mechatol Rex for at least a round. In doing so, occupy the city of the Empire should be an easy one for you to work towards. And then my last one here is unveil flagship. Win a space combat in a system that contains your flagship. You cannot score this objective if your flagship is destroyed in the combat. So again, when you get your flagship out in the second round, use it in some of the earliest combats you do, and use it to then get those fleet supply before it attacks those enemies. It's got 2 attacks that hit on a 3 or better. This is going to be another one that is going to be very easy to work towards. These are all decent objectives to go towards. None of them are going to be gimmies. None of them are going to be ones you're going to get right away. But some of them you'll be able to get in the first third of the game. And these are all ones you're going to want to get and hold on to if you can get them. Now, so that is it. That is my rundown of the Mahact gene-sorcerers. They are very versatile, and you're going to need to be fluid with your strategies, because a big part of the strategies you're going to have are going to be based around what abilities your opponent's commanders bring to the table, because you're going to be stealing tokens from them and using that token to gain access to their commanders' abilities once they have unlocked their own commanders. So other than that, though, the general strategies you're going to want to go for is you're going to want to expand quickly, colonizing a minimum of 2 systems every round. You're going to want to eventually gain control of the politics of the galaxy, dictating what agendas and who's getting elected for what. Now, if all of your opponents gang up on you, you're not going to be able to do that. But if you maintain a fair amount of power between Ix and, of course, the huge amount of influence that Mechatol Rex has, and some other planets, plus some abilities like the genetic recombination, and if you do some deals with maybe one other player, you can probably work towards actually winning some of these elections and getting certain laws passed that you really need to help benefit you in the game. So you're going to want to attack people. You're going to want to. So you're going to be an interesting combination of military and political, and then adjust your technology plans accordingly based on what commander abilities are out there that you're going to steal the use of. Unfortunately, I can't be more specific in strategy recommendations for the Mahact because of how varied they have to be based on who they're playing against. But I do think they are a very versatile, very difficult to prepare for faction, because your opponents also can't figure out what to prepare for, because it's going to vary based on what they and the other players choose to be their factions and what their commander abilities are. I think the Mahact can be a lot of fun to play, and each time you play them, they can be very different as long as your opponents have chosen different factions, which makes them very interesting. Plus, the Edict and Imperia abilities combined with the ability of their Star Lancer are freaking awesome. That whole cycle of abilities of going with the flagship, decimate one of their fleets, take their token, put it in your fleet control. The fleet control lets you get the commander ability from that player. Then when they go to attack you, you use your Star Lancer to remove their token and give it back to them, suddenly making your flagship more powerful again, temporarily losing the ability from their commander, but if then you fight them again, gaining that ability back. Really cool cycle of abilities, something I definitely recommend working towards. And there you have it. Those are my suggestions for playing the Mahact gene-sorcerers. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or other recommendations, things that I may have missed, feel free to put them in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this episode of Grokking Twilight Imperium and you'd like to see me do more like it, be sure to give this video a like, share it on all forms of social media, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Board Game Kaptain. That's Kaptain spelled with a K on YouTube. And until next time, game on.